There are 17,500 species of butterflies in the world. Here in Alberta, we have over 170 different species of butterflies. In this episode, we'll be diving into the fluttery and colorful world of butterflies that call this area home. What is a butterfly? Some distinct features of butterflies and moths are that, compared to other insects, they're the only ones that have scales covering their wings. They're also able to coil up their proboscis. Here in Alberta, we have 5 main families of butterflies: skippers, swallowtails and parnassians, whites and sulfurs, gossamer wings, and brushfoots. Before we dive into learning about the different families of butterflies in Alberta, we'll discuss why people love butterflies and what butterfly watching is. Butterfly watching is the hobby of observing and studying butterflies. Very similar to birding, it could be more passive, simply enjoying butterflies one encounters, or one might seek out certain species or study them and keep track of them and record that data. People have always loved butterflies for their beautiful colors, interesting flight, and the meanings and symbolisms that they can hold within different cultures. John Acorn is a professor at the University of Alberta. He is iconically known as the Nature Nut and is a scientist, author, and broadcaster. Throughout his career, his accomplishments and publication have inspired curiosity and education about the natural world. He is the author of the book Butterflies of Alberta and many other nature guidebooks for Alberta. I asked him why he thought people liked butterflies.
They're kind of like little self-propelled flowers, right? And when you realize that not only are they pretty and flower-like, they've got a face. They've got goals in life. They're just almost universally loved creatures. Why people like butterflies and not moths is baffling to me, because they're both beautiful. But butterflies are usually a little bit more colorful because they're out during the daylight hours, and they're colorful for reasons that have to do with bird vision and so on.
Similarly, research from color psychology shows that seeing bright and warm colors may promote positive feelings for people, which may be part of the reason that we feel delighted and captivated by these colorful flying insects. Next, we'll briefly review the 5 families of butterflies found in Alberta. For our first family, Parnassians and swallowtails, we'll be highlighting the species, the Canadian tiger swallowtail. Canadian tiger swallowtails are big, beautiful butterflies. They are captivating, and they'll often be found in the province from May to July, wherever there are aspen poplars. This is because the Canadian tiger swallowtail butterfly will lay her eggs on these trees, which the caterpillars will feed on to continue the generation. Our next family of butterflies are skippers. They are stockier and much smaller than our swallowtail friends. Often mistaken for moths due to the way their wings are set towards the back of their body, they're aptly named because they quickly dart in their flight. There are 48 species of skippers found in Alberta. Depending on the months and different habitats, you will find different skippers. One of the skippers I found near Edmonton was the northern cloudy wing. The best place to find the northern cloudy wing is along the forest edges, perched on or near the ground, which is very similar to my photo here where I saw it perched on a blade of grass. In May, the female northern cloudy wings will lay her eggs, and the caterpillars will actually take the entire summer to eat and to grow before they overwinter and pupate in the following spring. Our next family are sulfurs and white butterflies. This family of butterflies can be characterized by their orange, white, or yellow wings with various different markings. Whites and sulfurs are small to medium-sized butterflies, well known for their fast flying. Sulfurs vary throughout Alberta, and there are many different species that rely on different habitats. Clouded sulfurs are a butterfly that are very common all throughout Alberta, and they're usually found in the vicinity of legumes, including sweet clover, alfalfa, and vetch. The gossamer wing butterflies are very tiny, and they often are almost missed. Of the three main groups, there are blues, coppers, and elfins. Elfins and coppers tend to be more brown or beige and have detailed dark brown markings. Blues, on the other hand, tend to catch people's eyes. Male blue butterflies will flash their wings when trying to attract mates. Something really beautiful that John Acorn describes in Butterflies of Alberta are blues with auroras. Auroras are when butterflies have an orange fade design on their wing. Here you can see an example of a little blue butterfly with auroras. Our next family are brushfoots. Brush-footed butterfly are any type of butterfly that are named for their reduced front legs. And these front legs are frequently pretty hairy and up close look like brushes. Interestingly, they only have 4 functional or walking legs. These 2 front legs are used for taste. Fritillaries are known for their orange appearance and their striking black designs, usually in the form of black lines and dots placed in different patterns. In Alberta, there are 3 categories of fritillaries: greater fritillaries, lesser fritillaries, and variegated fritillary. Many of our fritillaries rely on many different violet species as their host plant, so the caterpillars will eat the leaves of violets. Next up are the admiral butterflies. Admiral butterflies can be identified by their overall dark appearance with a striking band of white or red on their upper wings. Red admirals can be found throughout Alberta, but they are most common during their migration years. White admirals appear also throughout Alberta, and the main emergence of the adult butterflies occur in mid to late June. And they will have multiple broods over the summer. Near the end of June, white admiral butterflies can be very common among poplar trees at the top of the river valley in Edmonton. Our next type of brushfoot butterfly will highlight are crescents. They are found throughout the prairies in June and in August, and their caterpillars feast on the leaves of asters. Fascinatingly, the half-grown caterpillars of crescents will then hibernate through the winter. Satyrs are a subfamily of brushfoot butterflies. These butterflies prefer open areas and meadows, with many of the caterpillars feasting on grasses. Ringlets are butterflies that are probably the most common and abundant satyr here in Alberta. Other common satyrs include the common wood nymph, which is a medium brown butterfly with black dots with a yellow ring around it. John Acorn shares about another type of brushfoot, the mourning cloak.
It's a beautiful sort of browny maroon color with a yellowish, a whitish yellow border on the wing and a few red and blue spots. The underwing looks like a piece of tree bark. So it's pretty. It's very widespread. It's also found in Europe, but widespread in North America. But the reason I really like it is that almost any day during the butterfly season, you have a chance of seeing a mourning cloak because the adults hibernate over the winter. So there's some of the first butterflies out in the spring, some of the last ones to go in the fall, and you get the new adults somewhere midsummer, and that's when they're at their most beautiful. So, a mourning cloak, it lives many months as a butterfly, whereas most butterflies live many days as a butterfly.
One of the first brushfoot butterflies to emerge in the spring along with the mourning cloak is the Milbert's tortoiseshell or fire-rimmed tortoiseshell. They have beautiful orange and yellow wings with blue dots on the edges. In Alberta, there are about 2 generations of Milbert's tortoiseshells. The caterpillars feed only on stinging nettles. This is why having stinging nettles, which a lot of people don't like, are still helpful for the ecosystem. Another type of brushfoot butterflies are commas. In central Alberta, there are 3 comma butterflies you could encounter: the green comma, hoary comma, and the gray comma. Fascinatingly, when these butterflies encounter one another, they will fly upwards together high above the treetops, and then they'll go back down to their resting place. This striking species is a viceroy. Often when people see a viceroy, they believe it is a monarch, one of the most popular butterflies. However, the viceroy is much smaller than a monarch butterfly, and they've got a black line going through their bottom wings. The next brushfoot butterfly we'll highlight in the episode are monarch butterflies. You can imagine they're much bigger than the viceroy, and they lack that black line that goes through the hind wing of the viceroy. Monarch butterflies are the largest butterfly found in Alberta, and we'll be diving more into their story and conservation in a future episode. Now that we've learned a bit about the different types of butterfly families you can find in Alberta, you can start to identify and notice what butterflies you notice in your park and yard. Next, we'll learn about some ways that we can help protect butterflies.
I think the best way to support insect populations is, well, first, realize that most insects are either neutral with respect to the interests of people or they're beneficial. The vast majority are neutral or beneficial. The number of pest species is very tiny. And a lot of those aren't really important pests anyway. They're just pests because people don't like them. So relax about insects and realize that they're our friends, so to speak. So the next most important thing is reduce or eliminate your use of pesticides. There are other ways to deal with insect pests, and why add more problematic chemicals to our environment when you don't have to. A lot of municipalities have banned the use of what they call cosmetic pesticides, pesticides that just make things look prettier in the garden. And I think that's a wise step. There are always reasons to avoid pesticides, and even when you have pest insects, you keep spraying them with pesticides, and they're insects, so they produce thousands and thousands of young, generation after generation, and pretty soon you have populations that are resistant to the pesticides because they're just genetically changed. So it's kind of a losing battle, the pesticide game, and I advise against it. There is a lot of public concern about butterflies because of the appeal of butterflies, about pollinators, about various threats and so on. It is worthwhile contributing to citizen science projects. So posting even pictures from your phone on platforms like iNaturalist or eButterfly. We do pay attention to those records, and sometimes people find remarkable things that help us understand how the butterflies are changing. So everyone can be a so-called citizen scientist.
Next, John shares about his interest in entomology and a bit about his background.
Well, I have rather broad interests as an entomologist, as a bug scientist. Most of my interests are ecological. How do insects interact with each other and with their environment, but I'm also interested in the taxonomy. What are the real groups in nature? What are the species? What are the patterns of biodiversity as we call it? So yeah, and everything from living insects, especially butterflies, but I also love beetles and I love flies and so on. Recently I've become much more interested in fossil insects, so that's an interesting subject as well. I grew up here in Edmonton and went through my grade school here. Then, because we had such excellent instructors at the University of Alberta, that's where I went for my bachelor's degree in zoology. And after that, I really didn't know whether I wanted to do paleontology or entomology. And I started in paleontology for a master's degree, and then I thought, nah, this isn't a perfect fit for me. So I switched over to entomology and finished my grad work in that area. And then I went on a long foray into public communication, working in television. I did the Nature Nut series and the Twits and Fishers bird watching show, and then started working on books. And Lone Pine Publishing, they published lots of natural history books locally here. And I also worked with the University of Alberta Press for a little bit more, not technical, but books that underwent a bit more editorial scrutiny and so on. So it was a lot of fun, and I've worked with other publishers as well, and I've done some paleontology books and projects as well. So yeah, it's been a super fun career, and now I teach at the University of Alberta in the Department of Renewable Resources. I'm a faculty member there, so I'm also involved in research, primarily working with graduate students. I for many years, I guess it's probably coming up on 30, I have done a weekly butterfly survey in the River Valley here in Edmonton. And it must be 7 or so years ago, a wonderful student, Zach McDonald, took that data and made an excellent paper out of it, butterfly-related projects, working with my colleague, Felix Sperling. He's a geneticist. So we've had students working on the genetics of butterflies, especially angle-wing butterflies, beautiful butterflies that hibernate over the winter. So they're sleeping, waiting for the first warm days as we speak right now. And crescent butterflies, little orange and brown butterflies, very, very difficult to tell apart when you're just looking at the butterflies. But the student Brittany Winger did DNA sequence analysis of the crescent butterfly. So that's the sort of thing that I've been up to, at least in the butterfly sphere.
I asked John if he noticed any changes in the populations or abundance of certain butterflies over time.
So that's a very complicated question. And I don't want to say no too readily, but I don't want to say yes too readily either. So let's talk first about, there's a couple of ideas that you read about frequently, and one of them is climate warming, how that might affect, let's say, butterflies in particular. There's no doubt that there is climate warming happening. And what we've seen so far is a really interesting pattern. You kind of expect that southern species would move north, right? And a few species have done that in southern Alberta. Two-tailed swallowtails, woodland skippers, so. But you also have this interesting pattern where species from the east have moved across into Alberta at the southern edge of the boreal forest. So very strange patterns. The Hobomok skipper, the northern pearly eye, these Saskatchewan butterflies, and weirdly enough, you and I are chatting in early February, and it's actually statistically a little tiny bit warmer in the forests of Saskatchewan than it is on the Alberta side. So they're taking advantage of that increasing warmth, because a lot of butterflies, why do they not live in particular places? Because of the coldest days in the winter. That's when the caterpillars or pupae or eggs or whatever just can't make it. So we've got these changes in the butterfly fauna with some new species coming into Alberta. Has that resulted in any sort of disruption of the species that we're here to begin with? Not really. It just adds species to the fauna. But it's clear that there's a change. And if you go further south into the US, there are people who are terribly concerned about butterflies on mountaintops, because as the climate warms, the butterfly have to go further and further up the mountain to reach cooler places that they like, and eventually they run out of mountain. Now, in Alberta, there's quite a few very cold mountains still to the north, so this is not a problem for us at this time. Maybe it will be in the future. In a small domain where I actually have data, which, things like the butterfly survey in the River Valley in Edmonton, we see tremendous fluctuations from year to year, but no overall trends, right? So we're not seeing a decline. We're not seeing more butterflies. We're just seeing fluctuation, typically with rainfall and temperature. Butterflies for which there are clear threats. And I'm talking about, let's take the most obvious example, which my son Benny studies for his master's work, is the half-moon hairstreak butterfly, which in Alberta lives only in one place. It lives on the Blackiston Fan, which is a flat, gravelly area in Waterton Lakes National Park. It's a small geographic area. It's a small population. You have to go at least 400 kilometers in any direction to find another half-moon hairstreak. The Alberta butterflies, according to the genetic work that Felix Burling, Zach McDonald, Julian Dupuis have done, that population is so inbred, which is kind of good because they've gotten rid of all the dangerous genes. But it's also, dangerous in the sense that there's no variety there. There's no variation, that might allow them to adapt to changing conditions. And it's been separated from any other population for thousands and thousands of years. So that population is small, and unique. It's genetically distinct from anything else. So it deserves concern because who knows, it wouldn't take much for something to happen to the entire fan, and there's no other population from which it could recover. So there's a good example of a butterfly that kind of needs a little bit of conservation help. Gravelly, a fan is where like a stream comes down out of the mountains and then it spreads out onto a flat and it deposits all its gravel, right? Because the water slows down. So that's an alluvial fan. They're not living on alluvial fans in British Columbia or Montana or Idaho. They're living in hilly country with sagebrush, which is completely different. So it's not just genetically different; it's ecologically different. It is also in interaction with ants, and Dr. James Glazier works with the Wilder Institute in the Calgary Zoo, and he's an ant specialist, and he's also involved in the study of the half-Malaria street butterfly, and so there's this additional question of do they need a particular sort of ant? And why is it a different ant in Alberta than it is in these other places? So there's lots of cool stuff happening there.
It was fascinating to hear about some of the lingering questions regarding butterfly research. And what does butterfly research actually involve?
One of the things that I find really interesting is long-term data. Okay. So we've got lots of records of butterflies, like individual butterflies that were collected by, like people all the way back to a guy named Mr. Bean, of all things, who worked for the railroad in Lake Louise, which was then called Magana. But to monitor butterfly changes over time, you don't just need individual butterflies. You need carefully collected survey data. So what I do is what's called a pollard count. I go out, I walk the same route every time, and I count all the butterflies that I see, and I've been doing it long enough that I can identify most of them, the vast majority of them, without too much trouble. And the ones I can't, sneak up to them, catch them, and have a look, and let them go. And you do that every week, and then you've got these nice data series that allow you to say something about how the butterflies are changing. And we've got a data series for Edmonton. There's one for the Beaver Hill Bird Observatory at Tofield, Beaver Hill Lake. There's another similar data series for Wagner Natural Area, west of Edmonton, the peatland. My friend Felix Sperling has a series for Bragg Creek and another one for Pigeon Lake. So we've got these data, and you go, well, we can just tell from that what's going on. But the problem is the habitat doesn't stay the same, right? So since they start, for example, at Beaver Hill Lake, since they started counting butterflies in a structured way, the trees are getting bigger, and there's more of them. There's more aspen trees and fewer open grassy areas and fewer willows, and so you kind of have to ask yourself, what am I measuring here? Am I measuring changes in butterfly health or whatever, or am I just measuring changes in the vegetation that result in different butterflies living in particular places? So it's tricky. My favorite site is the one that I monitor in Edmonton, because the city mows part of it, right? So it's kept looking kind of the same. It's the most stable site that we have, but it's stable at a cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
That tremendous cost of mowing and maintenance and pruning trees and
Right.
so on and so forth. It's like all of ecology. It's you spend part of your time gathering the data and enjoying the outdoors, and then you spend a lot of time struggling with both the statistics and the just the thinking process. What does it mean?
I was so grateful for the opportunity to speak with John Acorn about some of his work and research. It seems that butterflies' lives are intricate, complicated, and connected to the ecosystem. A lot of questions remain unanswered, which is exciting for the field of entomology and butterfly research. Together, we went over the different families of butterflies as a start to breaking down and identifying the different butterflies that live in our city, including common ones you might find in parks, yards, and gardens.